This is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to a special 5-part podcast series sponsored by Hanzo. In this series, we consider how to leverage artificial intelligence in compliance investigations. In this podcast series, I'm joined by several members of the Hanzo team as we explore the current best practices around investigations and how your compliance function can take investigations to a new level of cost, efficiency, and operational proficiency utilizing tools provided by Hanzo. Our explorations include considering the Department of Justice's guidance on investigations recently released, the use of AI in the Hanzo Investigator, how Hanzo technology can help a company overcome investigative challenges, and Hanzo's specific approach to finding and managing data across literally the entire life cycle of an investigation. In this exploration, we are joined by Sean Friedland, Hanzo's Senior Product Marketing Manager and Compliance, Jim Murphy, the VP of Products, and Keith Laska, the CEO of Hanzo. I know you will enjoy this series. It has lots of information packed into it, which you will be able to utilize in your compliance program and more specifically in your investigations going forward. In this episode, I'm joined again by Jim Murphy, Vice President for Products at Hanzo, to consider more specifically how the technology which has been used by legal professionals in the past can be utilized by compliance professionals going forward. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, back again in our third episode of our 5-part exploration with Hanzo about conducting more conclusive compliance investigations with AI and web-based evidence. Today, I'm continuing my conversation with Jim Murphy. Jim is the VP of Product at Hanzo, and this is something that I think every compliance practitioner would certainly want to understand. And Jim, I would like to really focus on why technology helps overcome these issues for the compliance practitioner and really Hanzo's experience from the legal side of things driving these innovations into compliance.
I do want to just kind of dive into a little bit about Hanzo Investigator and really where we've been with e-discovery professionals and kind of putting my product development hat on. Just wanted to look through and kind of share a little bit about our roadmap and where we see this going forward. So we talked last time about kind of the core of what our investigator product is. And certainly at its foundation is our ability to preserve web content in a legally defensible manner. So understanding that that's good, how are we, continuing to enhance what it is that we bring to the market around investigations? I talked about 3 pillars before, and really a big focus for us as we move forward is really on the first 2 pillars. The first pillar being, can I find the right data on the web? So we're continuing to integrate with additional data sources, which enhance how it is that we're discovering content, enhance how it is that we're discovering the right subjects, and enhance, making that connection between subjects and social media. Our data scientists have a significant focus on making that process more robust, making it faster, and making it more accurate. The second component where we're really analyzing data, again, a big focus from our data science team is, how can we analyze this data to make it most useful for our customers? And one of the directions that we're looking at, I've been referring to it as kind of a ranking effort. And what that really means is, given a corpus of data and given a particular scenario, using machine learning algorithms, am I able to predict and kind of rank? Can I predict how likely there's a risk here for our customers? We know that there's a very limited budget that everybody has to spend in their review and their investigation. And really our goal is to try and make that budget as effective as possible. So that, if there's, a ton of data to look through, how can I make sure that the data that you do actually have time and resource to look through is most likely to contain the risky information that you need to take a look at.
Jim, this enhanced ability to not only review data, but actually analyze it is something that is always on the forefront of the mind of a compliance practitioner. They often ask, well, I've got this data, what does it mean? And it occurs to me that by helping the compliance practitioner with the rating slash ranking can not only give additional assistance to the compliance practitioner, but actually makes the investigative process more efficient as well. Would that be a fair assessment on my part?
I think that's absolutely right. What we know is that when it comes time to run an investigation, there's a mountain of data. It's not reasonable to be able to make it through and apply review capacity to everything. And so we think that it's a very important and very timely aspect to bring to the process to be able to make sure that we're focusing on the most relevant or most likely to be relevant data.
Jim, I was wondering if you might be able to turn to a couple of examples. In the legal world, we'd call that case studies. But are there any investigations or even projects that you might be able to talk about anonymized, but in a manner which would convey the real power of the Hanzo roadmap and the tools that Hanzo brings to bear in this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to talk about two. The first that I'll talk about was so it is a case involving an accident, and I won't get too specific around that, but I'll just say it was a highly publicized accident locally where it occurred, and a number of lawsuits stemmed from the events that took place. So we have run a couple of investigations around this event. And of course, we brought a lot of information about particular subjects that were involved. And what I wanted to call out specifically within this case was because the local media talked about this a lot, one of the important things that I think is interesting that we brought through our investigations is the capture and preservation of a significant amount of the news coverage surrounding the event. Now, how that gets utilized later, we're not sure, right? But you might have a case where once this goes to trial or potentially you have a jury, you do want to know, what did everybody have access to at that point, right? What was everybody talking about, whether that's on YouTube or whether that's on social media. We were able to kind of deliver a real good profile of what was being presented to all of the constituents and to all of the potential jurors. I think that's a really interesting case. The second that I'll talk about is around IP theft. So you had some employees who were working at a firm. They left, discovered, or they thought that it was very likely that the former employees had taken some IP with them. This was corroborated by internal messages and communication within the firm. And really, when we started working on the case with them, what they were looking for is, has anybody been talking about this out on social media? Have we seen connections between certain individuals? And have they been bringing up the idea of starting a new company or bringing some of that data with them? And here's the interesting thing. We didn't find, we found the social media profiles, but we saw no evidence talking about IP theft or talking about bringing people with them. And the interesting thing is that was also valuable to this case. It was valuable because there's no longer a mystery of, boy, I wonder if there is something out there that I should be aware of, right? You've got a litigator saying, I've done my due diligence. I've looked where I needed to. I've gone through that process, and I feel comfortable and confident with the approach that I'm taking right now, understanding that there's not something sitting out there that might explode my case, which I wasn't aware of and didn't try to go find. And so the interesting thing that we found out about in this case is the lack of information out on the web also has value to the case, because they know that there is not going to be some type of mysterious piece of evidence that shows up later, which would have been available in plain sight. So that's another use of investigations, which doesn't seem like the typical application of tech. Or you're not discovering the smoking gun, but you can prove and show that you've gone through your due diligence to look and to try and harvest that information.
Both of those examples were great, and I hope the compliance professionals listening to this podcast would certainly understand that the tools, tactics, and techniques that Hanzo has developed in the e-discovery and legal space really can enhance what the compliance professional is called on being asked to do more often. So I wanted to thank you for your time today, and I look forward to continuing the conversation in our next podcast with Keith Laska. But I wanted to ask you before we sign off, for anyone listening who wants to learn more about Hanzo or see how all of this works, to consider using it in their compliance program, is there a place they could go?
Absolutely, Tom. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time. To find out more from Hanzo, please visit hanzo.co. And you can also, for a more specific use case, see hanzo.co/ all one word, compliance investigations. Go ahead and log in there and request to see a demo. You'll be able to see what it is that we've been talking about. And thanks again, Tom.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. We will link to these resources in the show notes, but if you want to obtain more information, check out the Hanzo website at www.hanzo.co. There are a significant amount of resources available on the website. In addition to information on the Hanzo Dynamic Investigator, there's a series of ebooks, white papers, and other information which can help you in your investigation. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to visiting with you again. This podcast series is a special presentation of the Compliance Podcast Network.